Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Bixley Tech Tuesday. We've got Andrew and I sitting down to talk today about budgeting your time. So Andrew, how do you go about figuring out how to actually best budget time on a project?
Sure, that's a great question. So it really depends on the nature of the project, but typically projects are going to fall kind of in a 3-month to 6-month time frame. And as far as your time as the client budgeting it, it's typically going to be a few hours a week that you're going to need to be involved for stand-up meetings where you're talking with the developers, giving status update, you're giving the feedback from your clients as they've tested the thing. So there's a good amount of back and forth there. So it's definitely not a 15 minutes a week kind of thing, but it's also not a 15 hours a week kind of thing.
Okay, that seems reasonable, but also though, why can't I just go sign up for some service? I mean, we live in the world of obviously like SaaS, so why can company X charge $19.99 a month for me to use this service, but you're telling me, Andrew, if I custom build it for myself, it's going to take me 3 to 6 months and sounds like probably be pretty expensive. Like, why is that?
Sure. So now we're kind of getting into, what is custom software versus what is off-the-shelf software. Custom software is something that is built to be a perfect fit to your needs, your unique business requirements. And custom software makes a lot of sense when there's not an off-the-shelf product. If there's already an off-the-shelf product that you can pay $19.99, $49.99 a month, it probably makes sense to go with that until perhaps you hit a certain scale. Maybe if you've got 20,000 users, or it could be less than that, a subscription-based product might not be cost-effective. Very likely is not. But at smaller scale, just kind of outsourcing all that to a off-the-shelf solution tends to make sense. With custom, there's a lot of back and forth. There's a lot of time that goes into planning, understanding your business requirements, validating those requirements, what we build, going to your users, gathering your user feedback, iteration. So there's just a lot of back and forth there that adds time, which adds cost, but ultimately gives you the benefit of this is a perfect fit solution that solves your very unique problem. So that's why it's time consuming, and the time consuming part is most of the time why it costs so much.
Got it. So we're budgeting this time because of the fact that we are building something completely custom, not just an off-the-shelf sort of thing. That's why we're talking about budgeting time. We're dealing more with either I have to custom build something fixed cost or I need to go some sort of time and materials model. But either way, you need to build out some sort of an estimate or a quote, which involves allocating for time as you're developing.
I think something that people don't take into consideration too when they're looking at off-the-shelf solutions or software as a service type solutions is the tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars that company put into building this thing. And so there's just a lot of maturity and a lot of time that's gone into building this thing, a lot of testing, a lot of validating of user ideas, focus groups, things like that. And so yes, you are paying a monthly fee, but it is not a perfect fit towards what you need. And realistically, you probably don't have the kind of budget that, Facebook has or something like that to build something like that. So you're leveraging their service, or you're going to build something custom that, yes, will take time and money, but again, is going to be exactly what your users need.
That makes sense. So we're dealing with, like, when we're building these estimates out for this custom built software, we're dealing with potentially days, not hours or even minutes of time when we're building out these estimates.
Right.
And so again, you kind of touched on the model of, I have to look over something as the client, and then I send it to the development team. The development team has to process it and say, okay, what did you mean by that? Whether it was written down on paper or maybe even over a phone call in our stand-up meetings or, daily meetings. You're building it as the team, you're then validating it on some test site, you're sending it back to so on and so forth. And again, this is all building out to hours.
Right. Yeah, nothing takes less than half a day.
Got it. I was going to say,
in a professional software development environment, this isn't, like you said, a 15-minute turnaround time. There's a lot of validation. I think something people don't understand too is that when you have software that's built and then you go make a change to it, it's quite possible that the new change you're making could break some old functionality or could cause something that worked before to not just to not gel right. And so we do what's called regression testing because we don't want anything new to break anything old. So we implement the new thing. We identify which parts of the software could be impacted by that. We go back and test those. So we're constantly validating to make sure that the software is still working as it should. And we do have automated tests and things like that we can build to help kind of automate those things. But there's always a certain amount of just kind of manual validation. So yes, it's never a quick like 15-minute type thing. Even things that are, changing colors and different things like that, we still want to make sure that it looks good with the designer. We didn't just switch from green to blue and it wrecks our color palette kind of thing. So there's a lot of validation we do to make sure that everything looks good, it works right, and it fits your user's needs.
Gotcha. So projects take time is basically what we're saying. And we do the best we can, obviously, to build out these estimates and give an understanding of, as we've established, more days and potentially months as these projects build on rather than just hours and minutes to do those features. But obviously, we're going to run into delays at some point. Something's going to come up, something's going to delay your project, something that's going to delay a project that we're working on. So Andrew, what are your thoughts on reasons that delays can kind of pop up? And then also, how do you deal with those?
Sure. So delays can come up because of miscommunications. Perhaps as the client, you didn't clearly communicate to me what your objective was or what you're trying to achieve here. And so maybe you said, do X, Y, Z. We did exactly that. And that didn't really fit your business need. Yes, we did get X, Y, Z done, but it wasn't achieving your overall objective. So by communicating your objectives and really just kind of what is the success criteria, what does winning look like, it helps us make sure that if we have any questions about what you're doing or what you're suggesting seems inconsistent with that, we can help give you feedback. So communication's a big one. Also, too, sometimes clients will just put off making decisions. So they need to select, whether they're going to use whether credit card processor A or B, whether Stripe or Square is going to be more widely accepted by their user base. But they don't take the time to do that. And then last minute, we don't really have a decision on which direction we're going. And so now we have to wait for that or kind of reprioritize at that point. So there's decision points that need to be made by the client, some research that they need to do with their users. And so it's just important that we as the developers communicate to you what those decisions are you have to make, so you have plenty of time to think about it and process that, and that you do those things in a timely manner. There's also like accounts that need to be set up. Many times there's several third-party services that are used throughout a project because it doesn't make sense to build everything from the ground up. There's many third-party things we can leverage, but we need those accounts. We need proper access. We need access to the hosting server or domain name. So there's any number of things that could cause delays. As far as how do we deal with those, we try to prevent them proactively as much as possible by when we do our project planning phases, identifying things that are potential blockers or that could be delays. So perhaps we're working with a third party who's providing an API for, loading funds or something like that. If we're going to need to work with that team, we don't want them to know 2 days before that, okay, we need your help doing this, or we need your help modifying the API. They need to know that 30 days in advance or maybe longer so they can plan accordingly.
So we can estimate and we can give you these timetables, because you're describing a lot of things to me. And as you can see, and as you can obviously see if you're watching this video, Andrew's describing a ton of stuff here that takes days to sometimes get feedback from the third parties, to communicate the expectations properly. And if you're telling me, or I say, Andrew, hey, Andrew, how long is this going to take? And I don't give you all that information, your estimation is not going to be wrong. It's just going to be inaccurate on the larger picture. And so that can be perceived as a delay in a way.
And that's a big advantage with working with an experienced development firm like Bixley is just we've seen all the different things that can go wrong with projects. We've seen the delays that can happen. And so we are experts in risk mitigation, and we can help tell you, look out for these potholes. When people go intending to do things themselves, I think a lot of times they don't really calculate the cost of what are some very expensive mistakes that could cause delays, that could cause added expenses and things like that. And we help our clients look out for those things. We say, watch out for this danger over here, watch out for this over here. And so it's hard to quantify how much we're saving you by holes you would have fallen in on your own, but we can definitely use our experience to help, guide you through that minefield.
Cool. So we'll obviously estimate a project out, or maybe even in the idea of going fixed bid model, we've laid out a very clear roadmap with costs associated, actual deadlines that need to be met, delivery dates, the whole thing. But something changes. There's some requirement that changes within the project, or just client, starts to see the feedback and they have a different direction, probably user feedback. You've touched on that a lot, and you have to pivot the project. How do you actually go about dealing with those pivots and still keep true to estimates in a way?
Sure. Well, if we're doing a agile type methodology or staff augmentation, then it's usually just a matter of we take this feedback, we put it in the backlog, and we help prioritize these things and determine, okay, is it going to be in the next sprint, off in the next 2-week iteration? But we try to avoid stopping everything we're doing now and jumping over and doing that, because a lot of gear switching just kind of wastes time. So we use the backlog to kind of groom those things and make sure they're handled in the upcoming weeks, or perhaps we identify that this is something that needs to be done, but it doesn't need to be done in this version. So as we get close to a release date, many times there's multiple releases. There's a version 1, there's a version 2, there's a version 3. And so as we're looking at these features or changes, we're constantly asking ourselves and the client, does this make sense to put it in Rev 1? Does it make sense to put it in Rev 2? Is this a Rev 1 time permitting sort of thing? That's also a common one. If this is a project and we're doing fixed bid, then that's going to be addressed in terms of a change order.
Got it. Okay.
So the client's going to let us know what they want. We'll work with the developers to figure out, a cost estimate for it. We'll come back and say, okay, this is going to be X dollars and take roughly X amount of time. They'll sign off that they approve that. And then we'll work with them to determine, again, does this need to go within the next 2 weeks? Can it go in V2? Does it need to go within the next 2 months? That kind of thing.
Gotcha. And obviously this isn't completely just catch-all kind of a statement here. But in your opinion, Andrew, if you're going to build something custom and you need to obviously estimate out time and a cost associated with it, what are your thoughts? I'm going out to the market with a custom built piece of software. How long is that going to take me? How much is that going to cost? If I don't have this much time and money ready to go, what are your thoughts? Yeah,
so we can just, talk in terms of bare minimums. So we've already touched on this is custom. Custom takes time. It's going to be a perfect fit. So the general parameters I'll tell people if I'm on like an initial sales call with them is you should have a time frame of at least 3 months to allow for proper back and forth, proper planning, proper testing. And you should have a development budget of a minimum of $60,000.
Gotcha. So again, not $19.99 a month.
Right.
Unless that works. But if I'm custom building something, I need to plan for a few months of time and I need to plan for about $60K. Now,
it just depends too on the scale, right? So if you come to us and say, my minimum product has got to be able to support 1 million users in this heavy. Well, you're not going to be talking $60,000, right? We're going to have much
bigger
caveat, much bigger architecture here. But if you're really looking at like a smaller group of people, or kind of reducing your scope initially, then yes, we can kind of fit something in for that and help you come up with a plan to grow it. So that's another thing to keep in mind too, as the client is. Do you need to push this out to everyone at once, or can you do it to a smaller subset of people, learn from that, solve their problems, and then build it out? And what do those phases look like in your rollout?
Gotcha.
Because some people feel like they have to shoot for the stars on the first one, which is of course going to take more time and cost more, and is usually almost always not the best way to do it.
It's always good to roll out iteratively and get the feedback from the customers. That makes complete sense.
You summarize that very well.
So overall, I think as we kind of wrap up here, and we're talking about estimates and time to actually build custom software, I think the big key takeaway points is that we're talking days and months Obviously, we said the 60K, 3 months to build a project, but we're talking days, weeks, as opposed to just hours to get features done. Our Bixley mantra is nothing takes less than half a day of work, obviously. And it's something that you as the customer, we sort of touched on it, like all this feedback here, there, and stuff. You can't just kind of set it and forget it. Right. You have to communicate with us either throughout the entire process if we're going to time and materials model, or you need to set aside some really clear road mapping at the front to basically lay out exactly what's trying to be built and have that strong communication. But as a client, you have to be involved.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So if someone's wanting to build with us, they need an estimate, they want a quote, they basically just even maybe want an idea of how to kind of get started with Bixley, how would they go about doing that?
Sure. So the easiest way to do that is to go to our website. And you can find on there's a way to contact us. You can sign up for a free consult with someone like Chris, who is going to help validate your idea, make sure that you even stand a good chance of being successful, because we only want to do projects that we feel like are going to, be a win for our client kind of thing.
Sure.
So Chris will help you validate those ideas. He'll talk about your time frame, your budget, what does winning look like, and help you determine, okay, am I on the right path for success? Also, we have a free custom software guide on our website, and that's really useful because it helps you look ahead and see what this journey is going to be like that you're going to go on with us. And what are the different phases, what to be aware of, and just help you really kind of count the cost and make sure that you do have the time to do what it is you need to do.
Cool. That seems reasonable. Any other closing thoughts then? Otherwise, we'll let people obviously go check out Bixley.com.
No, I think that's it.
Cool. Well, everyone, I appreciate you taking some time to talk with us about basically budgeting your time on a project. And again, I want you to walk away with the understanding that building custom software just takes time. So again, please feel free to check out Bixley.com, go get that brochure for our custom software and download that either from our site, you can find it on the contact page, or we also have it conveniently linked in this video. Thank you very much, everyone. I look forward to chatting with you all again on the next Bixley Tech Tuesday.